Hey friends, it's Aki here. As the year is coming to an end, I want to make this video to share some of the 3D prints that became part of my everyday setup this year. These are the prints that I find actually useful, stuff I still use almost every day. So if you're thinking about getting a 3D printer, I hope this gives you a good idea of what you might really end up printing once you have one. I will also share my experience with which prints feel truly practical to me and they're not just cool to look at. These are the ones that make getting a 3D printer feel really worth it to me. To start, I have this really cool looking cylinder shaped Apple Watch charging station. The Apple wireless charger fits right into it and sits very nicely inside. Now what I like about this design is how well the watch rests on the stand. The wristband tucks in very neatly and it doesn't take up too much space. The watch also sits at a slight upward angle, which makes it easy and comfortable to check the time. I also really like the mesh design on the stand. It looks clean, fun, and a little different. For me, what makes this 3D print worth it is that it solves a real problem. On its own, the Apple Watch charger is small and light, and it just kind of slides around on my desk, and I can really use it as a standby clock. But by adding a base to it, the charger becomes much more stable. It stays in place, looks good on my desk, and works nicely as a clock. And designs like this mesh are where 3D printing really shines. It can create complex shapes and geometry and turn them into practical pieces like this Apple Watch stand. All at very low cost. I think it only took about a couple bucks to print this out. And if you're trying to buy a Apple Watch stand on the Apple website, they can cost like anywhere up to $50 to $100 and pretty expensive. Alright, next up, we have another charging related 3D print. This cushion pillow looking thing is actually an AirPod charging station. Again, it's a 3D print with an Apple wireless charger fitted inside. What I really like about this one is the fun pillow design. You can see all the creases and wrinkles, and from far away, it looks just like a soft object. But it's actually 3D printed using PLA plastic. I've managed to trick a lot of my friends with this, and they were pretty mind blown by how well 3D printing can mimic fabric textures. I think this is a great example of where 3D printing really shines. You can create fun, complex designs and still integrate them into something functional, like the AirPod charger. Next up, I have these two really fun looking phone stands. One is a beanbag chair design and the other one is a pool noodle design. I printed both of these and have really enjoyed using them, mostly because of how fun the designs are. Just like the AirPods cushion charger, I love how the beanbag chair looks. It really feels like a beanbag, especially since I printed it in metallic blue, which gives it a slight shine, just like a nylon fabric. But again, it's just plastic, and I'm still amazed at how well it can mimic texture. The pool noodle design is very fun too. I love the form, it's very simple, but it's very smart. Another nice thing is I can resize the designs and turn them into stands for my tablets if I really wanted to. Having phone stand is super useful, especially when you're trying to FaceTime or just propping your phone up on the desk. I also really don't want to spend money on cheap looking phone stands on Amazon, so 3D printing ended up being a great solution for me. Alright, next up, I have another charging station print that I use every day. I guess I just really like these wireless charging 3D prints at this point. But this one is for my iPhone. I like this charging station because of its compact spherical design and it clamps nicely onto my desk. This design helps a lot with my desk organization. My iPhone has a dedicated place to go and it doesn't take up any desk space at all. And it charges the phone at the same time. I can also rotate it horizontally and use it as a standby mode, which is really nice. I actually 3D printed a very popular iPhone standby dock design a while ago, and it was great design overall. But over time, I felt like it still took up that space and the push mechanism didn't slide very smoothly, and I could only use it without a phone case. So I stopped using that one. But this charging dock here solves all those issues. which is why I'm still using it. The only downside is that you can't really adjust the angle for things like FaceTime, but that's when I switched over to my phone stands. I feel like since this is a 3D printing video, I have to talk about my desktop wind tunnel projects from earlier this year. If I have to name one thing that really made owning a 3D printer worth it to me, it would be this project. Without a 3D printer, I honestly don't think I could have made something like this. For those of you who are new to it, I designed and 3D printed a desktop mini wind tunnel that allows you to test the aerodynamics of small things like a scale car models or airplanes. It's really cool to see the airflow visualized inside of the tunnel, and the whole process was a lot of fun to me. There was a lot of 3D modeling, design iterations, and changes before I landed on a final version that I was happy with. That said, one downside of 3D printing of a project like this is how time-consuming it was. Printing large parts like the wind tunnel's frame took forever. The structural strength wasn't amazing either, so I had to glue a lot of things together. But for those of you who have been following the projects, I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I highly recommend checking those videos out if you haven't already. Looking at these 3D prints, I think there's a clear pattern. I think the 3D prints that I keep using the most aren't just cool to look at. They're the ones that are functional, with aesthetics built right into the design. A lot of that comes from the shapes and the geometries, and these designs can only be achieved by using a 3D printer at home. Take this cushion AirPods charging station for example. Technically, you can just use the wireless charger on its own, but once you build it into this 3D printed cushion, it becomes way nicer to use, it doesn't slide around on my desk, and the shape naturally holds the AirPods in place. And I think it's just very cool to look at. Again, you don't need all of this just to charge your AirPods, but I think this is where 3D printing really shows its value and what it can do. At the end of the day, this is why I love 3D printing. It turns simple everyday objects into something that are more useful and more enjoyable to use. It's not about printing random stuff, but making things that actually improve how you use them every day. Now, on the other hand, after experimenting with 3D printing for over a year, there are certain types of prints I now try to avoid. One of them is designs with too many moving parts. Plastic wears out pretty fast, especially with repeated motion, and things tend to break over time. Moving parts also don't slide too well when they're 3D printed. The layer lines create friction when surfaces moving against each other, and because of that, I've learned that the fewer moving parts, the better, both when finding designs and design it on your own. I also try to avoid printing structural parts. Plastic can still be pretty fragile, and for those kind of things, there are usually better materials and methods to use. And I tend to avoid overly large prints too. Running into problems on a 10-hour plus print is just a headache, and kind of takes the fun out of it for me. But at the end of the day, you do you. 3D prints, whatever makes you happy and serve your purpose. This is just my personal experience. I've definitely broken a lot of these rules myself, like when I built the desktop wind tunnel. The project was a success, and I had a lot of fun making it, and I learned a lot. I hope this video and me sharing what I print helps you on your 3D printing journey. Feel free to leave a comment below with your own tips or prints you've made to show why 3D printer is worth it and where the real value is. I think 3D printing is growing fast, and it's definitely here to stay. Working in the construction industry, I've heard a lot of 3D printed concrete houses and how they can be better than traditional wood frame homes. Of course, they come with their own challenges, just like anything else. I'm really curious to see how 3D printing with AI will come together over the next few years. Thank you for watching, my name's Aki, and I hope to see you in the next video.